What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here with another Week 7 college football preview, and we got our first SWAC preview of the day. This will be one of two. We'll have Alabama A&M FAMU dropping later this afternoon, but we got to start with Alabama State traveling down to Jackson State in a huge SWAC East matchup this weekend in Veterans Memorial Stadium. And we have two teams really looking to make a statement, and Jackson State looking to prove that they're the top dog in the SWAC. And then also Alabama State really establishing themselves as a dark horse in that division. Jackson State right now, based on the spread I found, is a 14.5 point favorite over Alabama State. And this game will kick off at 2 p.m. Central Time live on ESPN Plus. Go ahead and get your ESPN Plus, subscriptions together. I think it's like $6.99. You can watch this game and also the awesome FAMU documentary that they just dropped as well. So it could be completely worth that $6.99 a month. But going into this game in terms of storylines, you have the Tigers coming into this matchup 4-1, 2-0 in SWAC play, and they're coming off a statement win over Alabama A&M where they put up 61 points on the road at A&M's homecoming, and it was domination from kickoff until the clock hit zero. Now, Coach Prime and this team is motivated to get some revenge. Donald Ely and this Alabama State team let them know that they beat them last year. They had Coach Prime's picture up on the scoreboard. There's been talks of shoes, and it's just been another week of trash talk toward JSU before this game. So Coach Prime and this team are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, looking to avenge that last year's loss. Now, the Hornets. They come in at 3-2. They're 2-1 in SWAC play, and they just came off of a big win over Arkansas Pine Bluff last weekend. And Donald Ely is going to have to try to, if he wins this game, he potentially could be off the hot seat. So this is a game not only for his career, but also a big game for a potential new quarterback down there in Montgomery, and Myles Crawley at quarterback. He made his first start last weekend, a freshman quarterback going up against the number one defense or one of the best defense in the SWAC. Depending on what metric you use, there are the best, but they're easily a top three defense overall. But the Hornets are looking to pull off a huge upset. I mean, this would flip the SWAC upside down because then you would potentially have FAMU, Alabama State, and Jackson State all with one loss, and Alabama State would have the tiebreaker over Jackson. Jackson would have the tiebreaker over FAMU, and FAMU would have the tiebreaker over Alabama State, which means Jackson State's win over FAMU might not save them. So that would have to go to whatever the secondary or third tiebreaker is in the SWAC. So this is a huge game for that conference race. Now, looking at the history, Jackson State leads the all-time series 28-16 with one tie. But Alabama State has won the past two matchups, including last year's 35-28 upset win in Coach Prime's spring season in Montgomery. Now, keys to the game, man. This was a little bit hard just because these teams, I think, match up very interestingly. But for Jackson State, it has to be to replicate the running game that we saw last week finally appear in Huntsville against Alabama A&M. They ran for almost 250 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, and averaged over 8 yards per carry against that Bulldogs defense. That was the first game this season Jackson State topped 100 yards on the ground. So they have to replicate that this weekend against Alabama State. Now, they were missing their top running back in Peyton Pickett last weekend, but we really saw the emergence of Santee Marshall and J.D. Martin at times last week. And I would imagine those two guys will get the nod, even if Pickett is good and ready to go. I think we could see him in red zone situations. But for me, based on what Marshall and Martin did last week, I think you have to go with the hot hand. Now, Marshall averaged over 10 yards per carry last week, had two big touchdowns, over 120 on the ground. Martin in limited action averaged over 5.5 yards per carry and had a big touchdown as well. And what I really want to see is just in this running game, I want to see the creativity that TC Taylor brought last week. We saw we saw like a wide receiver reverse. We saw just some creativity getting these playmakers out in space. I want to start seeing him use Lanier and Warren Newman on jet sweeps, on screens as an extension of the rushing game because the DBs for ASU are very solid. They're one of the best group of DBs that Jackson State's seen this year. You have to go let your guys make plays in space. So get them the balls, or get them the ball in open space. Let them go make plays. Let them win that man on man matchup out in the open field rather than having them have to beat some very talented DBs in coverage every single play. Now, this is probably the second best secondary I'd say overall that Jackson State's seen. I think them and FAMU are easily the top two, but Shador Sanders is going to have to put on another show, and he's been performing so well this year. And when you look at what he's done already, guys, I'll put some of this together. He leads the SWAC in completion percentage and efficiency. He's second in passing yards and touchdowns, and he's tied for second in fewest INTs with one. He's completed over 71% of his passes, over 1,300 yards, 11 passing touchdowns, only one interception, and two rushing touchdowns. It doesn't have to be complicated for Shador. He just has to do what he's been doing all season long, which is stay composed in the pocket and get the ball to his playmakers with opportunities to make plays down the field. It's a simple formula, guys, and it's really easy just to break it down, but it's worked all season long. So why would you change it now when you have the whole season in front of you and you just came off the record-setting performance that you had last weekend? So for me, it has to be the rushing game is the key for them just because of how good Alabama State is on the back end, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But the key for Alabama State could be one of many things. But with a freshman quarterback only being in his second start against this top JSU defense, you're going to have to be balanced and run the football against Jackson State. You've got to try to avoid being one dimensional. If Jackson State can make a team one dimensional, this defense is too talented and they're going to eat you alive. Now, for me, the rushing attack's been the missing component for Alabama State. Yes, they're 2-1 in the SWAC, 3-2 overall, but really and truly, they haven't replicated that rushing attack that really made them a dangerous matchup last year. They're only averaging around 89 yards on the ground per game and less than 3 yards per carries for the entire season. That is not going to work against Jackson State. They are going to have to play better. And it all starts with Ezra Gray and Ja'Cory Merritt at running back. Both have over 140 yards rushing this year, have 4 touchdowns combined. They're both averaging under 5 yards per carry, but Merritt's averaging 2.4 yards per carry. Both of these guys are going to have to be explosive. When you look at what the catalyst was last season for Alabama State, it was running the ball against Jackson State, but the challenge is much greater this season because Jackson State's defense is only allowing 85 yards on the ground per game and less than 2.5 yards per carry. Last season, the Hornets rushed for over 200 yards and 7 yards per carry, with Ezra Gray almost hitting the 200-yard mark by himself with 3 touchdowns and over 8.5 yards per carry. They aren't going to be able to do that this weekend, I don't think, but you have to at least be able to rush for 100 to 150 and keep yourself in third and manageable, but also keep Jackson State away from just pinning their ears back. Because if you're one-dimensional and they know you're going to have to throw it like they did last weekend against A&M, where they held Gary Quarles in that rushing attack to 8 yards rushing, they're going to pin their ears back. They're going to blitz you, and they are going to get to the quarterback. And your offense is going to sputter and stall all day long. So for me, on top of that, you got to establish the run game to help Myles Crawley at quarterback. He's going to have to grow up real fast this weekend. He had a great opening performance last weekend, almost 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, a pick, and he completed 71% of his passes. But this is going to be his first road start, second career start. And even though he played outstanding, this is a completely different level of competition and test for Crawley against this Jackson State defense. He's going to have to use his athleticism to avoid pressure. As much as the offensive line is to blame last week for Alabama A&M's struggle, Akil was a little bit of a statue at times where he held onto the ball too long. He didn't move his feet in the pocket, didn't manipulate the pocket, and got sacked. So Crawley has to be not have his pocket presence, but be able to get out of the way of the rush, get out of the pocket, and make some plays downfield, or at least avoid the sack. Throw the ball away, get the ball out, and don't lose 5, 10, 15 yards or get a strip sack or something like that that's going to completely shift the momentum. The goal for Alabama State should be to keep the momentum either even or in their favor. Because if you let Jackson State on homecoming, when they haven't played in front of these fans in a while, especially a SWAC game, because they opened up with 3 road games, then they played a D2 school, then they went on the road and had a bye week. So this fan base is going to show up and be excited. So if you let them jump on you early, all that momentum is going to be flowing the wrong direction. So Crawley in this run game have to limit explosive plays for this Jackson State defense. If Crawley can keep this defense on schedule, that's going to put them in a very good spot. Many Jackson State opponents this year have stayed behind schedule and they find themselves in the 3rd and 9s, find themselves in the 3rd and 11s, and that's how you are going to lose a game big time to Jackson State because they're too good for you to consistently convert on 3rd and 11s. So moving to the matchup to watch though, it's got to be for me the Jackson State wide receiving core against this extremely talented Alabama State defensive backfield. The Hornets have to try and make JSU one-dimensional. And that's really their only chance for a potential upset, in my opinion. They have to either shut down the run game, put it all on Shedeur Sanders, and or shut down Shedeur, force him into some freshman mistakes, and then at least not let the run game be explosive. They're going to have to do one of the two, and that's way easier said on this show than it will be done on the field this Saturday. But you look at the wide receiving core for JSU, they're extremely talented and they have a wide variety of guys that come with different skill sets. It's really going to be a big test for this Alabama State secondary. You look at Newman, over 35 catches, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lanier is up there, averaging almost 10 yards per catch with 3 touchdowns. You got Rucker on the outside. Corbin also has 3 touchdowns this year. But for me, I would love, man. Listen, I was rooting. Everyone knows I picked A&M last week. I know at the game, I was so excited for them to finally use Malachi Wideman, especially in the red zone. I've been screaming to use Rucker, Wideman, one of these big, tall guys in the red zone to go up there and say, "That's my ball. We're just going to throw it up, and you need to beat your guy one-on-one in the back corner of the end zone." And they finally did that with Wideman, and he burnt his corner. I want to see Wideman be used in this offense more. To me, he has more potential than anybody else in this wide receiving room. And so I would like to see him get more opportunities moving down, moving throughout the season. But for me, the wide receivers just have to do what they do, get open space, make plays for Shedeur. And when you get the ball in open space, go make some plays. That's where Newman and Lanier have made their living, is catching these short passes and making something happen after the fact. So that's going to be the key for Jackson State in this matchup, is just let these wide receivers be the playmakers that they really are. Now, Alabama State secondary, they're only allowing 160 yards per game through the air, less than 6 yards per completion, and also holding opponents to like a 43% completion percentage this year. That's elite production regardless of, your level of competition. I mean, you are really playing high level defense in the secondary. Now it's headlined by Irshad Davis. He actually leads Alabama State in tackles with 32, has a sack, has one of Alabama State's picks, and is one of the leaders of the back end of this defense. You also have Jacquez Payton, who transferred in from Jacksonville State. He ranks top 5 in the entire FCS in pass breakups this season, and also leads the SWAC this year with like 7 pass breakups. And then let's not forget Natron Culpepper, Keenan Isaac, both of which are going to be vital pieces of the back end of this ASU defense. Listen, JSU is going to put pressure on these guys, not only to cover routes, but they're, like I said with Lanier and Newman, they're going to have to make tackles and plays in open space. Is Alabama State secondary ready for the challenge? They performed very well in the first half against Auburn. They had some moments, against Bethune and UAPB, but then against FAMU, the defense played well at times, but they weren't consistent enough. So for me, they're going to have their best game of the season this weekend if they want to pull off the upset in Jackson. Now, for predictions, I think this game is going to be much closer than last week, man. I can't see them putting Jackson State putting up 61 again because I think Alabama State has a light years better defense than what they saw last week against Alabama A&M. But I do think the crowd's going to be electric. I think this Jackson State team and Dion and all the recruits coming, that's just going to have this whole stadium like in with a different type of energy. I'll also trust Shador even though he's also a freshman. I trust him over Myles Crawley to make plays, especially with Crawley only playing one total game in his career, really. And on top of that, I just feel like TC Taylor's play calling really brings this offense up to a new level. And I trust JSU's defense to make a few stops. So this weekend, I have JSU 26, Alabama State 10. Got Jackson State winning by 16 this weekend over Alabama State. So I got the Tigers 26, the Hornets 10. Guys, as y'all know, this is our SWAC game of the week. So go ahead, comment your score predictions below. And also, if you get the winner and the correct score right, you win our $50 Venmo giveaway. But so I got the Tigers 26, Hornets 10. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you are new. Also, go ahead and like the video and share it if you would, man. Appreciate all y'all support. But like I said, got the Tigers by 16 this weekend. If you're in Jackson, man, enjoy homecoming. I know it's going to be electric. I'm also going to be trying to find out some of the recruits who are going to be there. That way, maybe I can do like a live stream tomorrow night or a short episode I'll drop, kind of highlighting the top recruits and what their interests are, who they are, some stats, things like that. That way you guys can be more educated on recruiting because I love talking recruiting. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.